North of Siasconset, or Sconset, as it is called by islanders, is the easternmost edge of the United States. The familiar Mercator projection, to be seen in every schoolroom, makes it look like Maine sticks out farther, but that is no more than an effect of flattening 3 dimensions into 2. On a globe, Nantucket beats Maine by between 2 and 3 degrees. As you look at a map of Nantucket, notice the small points of Coteau jutting into Nantucket Harbor. They are named First Point, Second Point, Third Point, Five Fingers Point, Bass Point, and Wires Point. Nantucket Harbor is in fact a series of basins, spilling sequentially one into the other as the tide rises or falls. The circular movement of the water within the basins cutting and shaping the thin grassy strip into the configurations revealed on the map. The harbor is 5 miles long and is of special interest to marine scientists and geographers because its basin arrangement and the way the water moves in circles within it are unique in the world. I have personally explored every part of the harbor with a series, over 35 years, of small boats, and bear witness to its beauty. The sudden, slightly exotic atmosphere of Cascada at the head of the harbor, inaccessible except by water, usually deserted, except in August, with its glades, hills, long ponds, and dunes, is especially alluring. Any one of the points as you return is worth exploring. You can swim in the shallows, fish for bass or bluefish in deeper waters, or simply cruise along in the sun. Despite its great area, one is never out of sight of land in the harbor, which is reassuring to the inexperienced sailor. If a fog bank rolls in and you can't see more than 20 feet in any direction, the thing to do is cut your engines, or lower your sail, and wait it out. As seen from the Atlantic Ocean, Melville describes Nantucket thusly: a mere hillock and elbow of sand, all beach, without a background. And so it still appears from a distance, although not quite as bare as it was in the first half of the 19th century. A sense of the ocean, the sound of it, or the smell of it, or a certain purity to the air, is felt everywhere on the island. Indeed, it's a pretty small patch of land, mostly moors, because the severity of the winter winds preclude the growth of trees over much of its surface. There are a few hidden forests where the topography allows mostly scrub oaks. It resembles southern Scotland more than it does the neighboring island of Martha's Vineyard or the mainland. It is best explored on foot, off the roads, in September and October, when the moors change colors, veering toward purple, and the sunlight turns winey. Some find it too bleak, but many, like myself, do not. Busy kids, working, making love, endlessly talking and arguing about the books and ideas we'd been exposed to the previous winter. We didn't have much time to explore. We seemed unable to get out of the lower Main Street area, with its side streets, post office, drugstore, 5 and 10, etc. That fifth of the town that had been destroyed by the Great Fire of 1846, which was the final blow to the island's foundering whaling industry, and rebuilt despite hard financial times. Once in a while we'd bike out to Surfside or walk around the crumbling wharfs and slips of the town waterfront, but that was about it. Not even the boy driving the tour bus saw very much going out to Sconset and back, stopping every now and then for water views or a look at the cranberry bogs. What one saw from the roads represented only a hint of the uniqueness of the island in those days. Now, with so many houses, hedges, landscaping, fences, and general prettifying on the sides of the roads, the hint is a good deal weaker. But much of the town of Nantucket looks a lot like it did 50 years ago. The lower part, where we roamed as kids, is similar to what the day trippers see now, although the shops are more densely commercialized and the prices are ridiculously high. What we did not see then, and surprisingly few off-islanders are aware of now, is that part of the town that survived the fire, an entirely residential area on Upper Main Street and off Upper Main Street, with a maze of lanes, narrow streets, alleys, and paths. To walk through old Nantucket town is to enter a living dream of the past. 150, 60, 70 years ago, sometimes 200 years ago, these beautiful houses were built. Federalist, Greek Revival, and Quaker architecture predominate. In terms of the size of the streets, lanes, buildings, narrow sidewalks, and especially the harmonious proportions of it all, it is as it was. It is not a museum, people live here, but as quiet, calm, and peaceful as anyone could wish. One finds oneself walking softly, talking softly, without consciously deciding to do so. I have visited and seen many lovely towns across America, but nothing has taken my breath away like old Nantucket. How did it come about? First, Nantucket was once a place in which the rich were truly mind-bogglingly rich. I don't mean now. I mean in the first half of the 19th century, when whaling ships would go out to the Pacific Ocean for a couple of years and return to home port in Nantucket with $1 million worth of oil below decks for their owners. There was a working class in Nantucket, to be sure. Coopers, blacksmiths, carpenters, sailors, clam diggers, etc., who lived mostly on the low ground, near the water. Up a bit higher, on Orange Street, for instance, ship's captains built solid houses with widows' walks on the roofs from which one could see what was happening in the harbor, or put out a chimney fire. The filthy rich, boat owners, investors, and businessmen, built fine, expensive homes on the high ground behind the Pacific National Bank at the top of Main Street. There was a certain amount of showing off on Upper Main, a kind of architectural one-upmanship in terms of size, style, and artistic discernment. In perfect taste, of course. Nothing vulgar. But then things changed. As Clay Lancaster explains in Nantucket in the 19th century, the island's chief industry, whale oil, had been reduced to half by the introduction of camphene. It was cut another 30% by lard oil, and finally was given the death blow by the production of kerosene from petroleum and by piped gas. The great whaling ships became passenger ships, carrying prospectors, including a large part of the working class from Nantucket, out to California in the gold rush of '49, on a one-way trip for ships and passengers alike. Well, there was still sheep herding. The animals had enjoyed more or less the run of the island for a long time, stripping vegetation efficiently, hence Melville's description. The cranberry industry was creeping along, as well as the extremely fragile beginnings of tourism, but the big money was gone. Hard times, even on Upper Main, where no one could do more than basic upkeep, and sometimes not even that, of the formerly grand houses. Many were boarded up. Even into the 20th century they remained unimproved, untouched except for the most basic and superficial attentions. A ghostly neighborhood, sunk in the amber of a financial depression. Bad luck then, but good luck for us. Rich people came back eventually, more than 100 years later, and they recognized the architectural gems as worth saving. They restored. They did not remodel, rebuild, modernize, tear down, or replace, as was going on in the rest of America. Over time, they restored the whole neighborhood, and even extended it slightly with tasteful new structures in harmony with the old. The result constitutes an authentic treasure, an unforgettable architectural experience for even the most jaded. Robert Mooney, an island attorney, in his interesting source book, Nantucket Only Yesterday, begins his 6th chapter with the following. The decade of the 50s marked a turning point from the long tradition of shared interests and close relationships within the Nantucket community. Prior to those years, the center of town was the place both residents and summer visitors mingled for shopping and recreational pursuits, typified by the evening sing-alongs on Main Street, after which everyone went home at 10 o'clock. There is no doubt much truth in this view, and certainly one's impulse is to defer to Mr. Mooney, an extremely knowledgeable man about his hometown. But I think the larger turning point was in the 70s, and then again even larger in the 90s. Mooney believes the influx of tourists from the Hyannis boats and the direct air service from Boston and New York brought a younger and livelier crowd. And it doubtless did, but the really big changes were to come later. In the 50s, there were the town of Nantucket, the village of Siasconset, and the beach at Surfside. Everything happened in those 3 locations. The rest was moors, ponds, open space, and occasionally a house off Pulpus Road, or a small cluster of houses near the water in a place like Quidnet, Pulpus, or Wawinnet. This last had a wonderful quiet old wooden hotel favored by the late John Cheever. But the action, such as it was in lower Nantucket. The year-round population of the island had remained fairly steady for 100 years at about 3,500. Mr. Mooney, who was in their number, describes their anti-Semitic, anti-gay feelings, which are still there for many year-rounders, suspiciousness of flashy New Yorkers, and some snobism about day-trippers. I suppose a certain number of people felt that way, but my sense, arriving in 1955, was that most islanders were genuinely happy to see us. The